The Siddur this week is called Terumah, and it follows on the heels of two extraordinarily powerful parshiot, that which contains the Ten Commandments and the aftermath of the continuing dialogue with the Jewish people in Mishpatim. And this week we understand from a chronological view, takes place immediately after the sin of the Egel HaZahav, the golden calf which the children of Israel, in a moment of lapse of utter faith, created a golden calf and danced around it and prayed and said, "This is your God, O Israel." That this week's Torah reading, Terumah, follows that, is not short of extraordinary, and its lesson should not be lost. Listen, God says to the Jewish people, after the golden calf, Vayikhu li Terumah, take for me holy Terumah. Take for me a segment of that which you will later call tzedakah, and give this to me. We're not really wrestling with sin and forgiveness. We're not in between those two polar opposites, which is what one would expect reading this Torah reading after the golden calf episode. Instead, God offers an opportunity for growth and learning to his children. What he says is, you have an opportunity now to reconstruct your present and redo your past. Vayikhu li Terumah, take from me tzedakah, me with a capital M. What God is asking of his people is a learning moment. You know you did wrong. You know you erred, and you sinned grievously. But the point is not slapping them on the wrist or spanking them on the bottom or punishing the people in some more difficult, painful way. The point is instead, how do we get to realign our thinking so that we're thinking properly instead of having skewed thinking, instead of living in the aftermath of anguish and anger, instead of having to justify ourselves and our actions, the things that we had done, instead of coming up with excuses for what we have said and what we have performed, instead of being angry and lashing out at someone else, in this instance God, instead of internalizing the pain and saying, yeah, we did wrong. So what we have in this week's Torah reading is a different reaction to a gross crime. Vayikhu li Terumah, take from me Terumah. You're going to do something to change your method of thinking. You're going to do something to change your way of cognition. You're not going to take for yourself Terumah. You're going to take from me Terumah. It's going to be holy Terumah. There's one very powerful story that's told of an acolyte student who went to his master and poured out his heart about all his economic woes, about how he owed so many vendors loads and loads of money, that which he could never repay, or at least at this moment feel never repay. And he asked the Rebbe for advice, and the Rebbe finally told him what to do. And at the end of the session, the man stood up, and the only right thing to do would be to offer his teacher, his sage, both thanks and a gift. He did the first, and then he reached into his pocket and pulled out some money and gave it to the rabbi and said, "Here, thank you for helping me." The rabbi looked back at him solemnly, and there was a moment of quiet before he said, "You're in debt. You need to pay back the debts. That takes priority. You're not going to give me this money. When you're flush with money, when you've paid your debts, when you've done the right thing, then we can talk." Holy money, holy tzedakah, holy actions. What we do with our life, how we frame our life, how we excuse our life, are all the questions that we need to wrestle with. And God points us in the quite right direction with this week's Torah reading. Vayikhu li Terumah, take from me Terumah. Tzedakah is righteousness. Practice it. Do it. In deed, in thought, in everything that we do that interacts one with another, and be selfish in our honesty, fierce with our integrity, in dealing with other people, dealing with God's other children. Only in such ways can we truly do two dramatic changes in the world. One, a dynamic shift in self, and the other one, tikkun olam, repairing a broken and fragmented world. It's not about getting even. It's not about revenge. It's about wholeness and holiness. It's about shalom.